never a damn dull moment. I
No.
swear. God, can't we just ride off into the sunset already? Can't people just chill?
Jen, the answer to that is no.
God, so freaking tired.
What we're talking about is Anthony Von Mandel relinquishing his CEO position to Phil Rossi, which on paper it's a big deal, but it's really kind of not a big deal because Phil has been working for Anthony for a long time. He knows his vision.
Years.
He knows how Anthony thinks. You know, Anthony's going to remain as chairman and founder. I don't know how much anything's going to change.
Yeah, sure.
Right?
It is interesting. I don't know if you saw in that long, winding, very APM tome that I think they can double their global market share, right? I think he said from 1% to 2%. Sorry, y'all. We're just coming off of this breaking news. I'm actually very surprised that I'm even here right now.
I know.
But you know, they have the expertise in RTDs, and that is where the market's going. So they are refounding with this change. So
Right. You know, I just think Anthony's tired. He's
yeah.
I don't blame him. Like, I don't want to be the CEO. I don't want to be there for everyday decisions, but I will hang in the background and tell you when you're wrong. You know.
Wow, that sounds really familiar.
Okay, Jen. Okay.
You saw that coming. Come
I
on,
did.
you set that trap and walked into it.
No, I walked right into that. But,
yeah.
And hopefully tell you when you're right, too.
Yes.
So, you know, our issue on Monday about AB's capacity utilization, I hope it wasn't condescending to readers because I sometimes feel like they don't get how important that is.
I'm sure.
And so I, maybe over mansplained it, as Jen would say. But I did get a note from Brendan Whitworth that said, "Well done. You got some of the facts right."
Yeah.
Some of the facts right. Which I take that as a win.
Yeah, we'll take some of the facts right all day.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean,
some all the time.
What else can you do when you're a trade newsletter that publishes every day? I mean, you can't get all of the facts right, but you get them all in front of you every day.
More accurate than ChatGPT.
Right. Slightly more accurate than ChatGPT. So we're letting in, and Jen, I want you to introduce Britt properly, but I just want to say this Britt, he has Britt. My name's Harry Shoemaker. I'm here with Jordan Triggers and Jen Litz Kirk, our editors on the beer side. Let me just say that when High Noon first came out, I, as usual, gave the worst prediction ever. I mean, am I known, Jen? Am I not known for terrible predictions? I mean, just
sometimes.
Yeah, 51% is all I can hope for. I was like, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. I said it in a Trump voice. It's not going to work because the taxes are too high. It's too high price. It's not going to compete with seltzers. What I forgot, Bartles and James was my first Gallo product that I dealt with in the 90s. And we all know they have life cycles. So, and you guys killed it with execution. That's what I'm going to lead with. I'm so glad to have you, Britt West, on our podcast. This is called Beer Net Radio. And I don't know if you've ever listened to it before, and I wouldn't be surprised you haven't, but it's the podcast that's known where all your dreams come true. Your dreams have already come true.
Harry, I mean, like, first time caller, long time fan. I don't know where you're going with this, but true confessions. My wife will tell you that I don't get out of bed every morning without reading BBD. So therefore, and that's usually sometime between 5 and 5:30. And she looks over and she sees the screen glowing and she's like, did something happen that you can't miss? And I was like, yes, it might have. I mean, like, who knows?
Absolutely. Well, I do appreciate that. I really do, Britt. And we're so glad to have you on the podcast. And Jen, give them a proper introduction.
Let me give Britt the official BeerNet Radio welcome. I'd like to welcome to BeerNet Radio Britt West, Chief Commercial Officer at Gallo. Britt has helped usher Gallo into a new age of spirits domination, having overseen the launch of top spirits RTD brand High Noon. Now I believe it's some 30 million cases, besides other fast-growing RTDs like Lucky One and VMC. He's also helping to evolve their route to market, having made some key moves to beer wholesalers in the past couple of years. Britt's an 8-year vet of the leading U.S. wine company with over 30% market share, now presiding as CCO over Gallo's full portfolio. And hopefully he's going to give us a peek under the hood for what's to come for the trend-setting company and maybe sort of shed some light on current industry dynamics. So welcome, Britt. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you guys for having me. I mean, I'm serious. It's kind of honored to be asked. I think in your career you've made it when you get asked.
All right, awesome.
Where did you came from Bacardi? So you came from a spirit side, and what compelled you to come out with a spirit-based seltzer? Because nobody was thinking about that at the time. It was all malt-based. White Claw and Truly were just killing it.
Yep.
And you're going to come in with a spirits base that's twice the price. It can only be sold in liquor stores in a lot of states. How did you think that was even going to be successful?
So I think a couple things. I live in Montana, which doesn't make any sense, but we won't talk about that. But I saw a lot of people used Bozeman as a test market in the malt-based seltzers. And it was blowing my mind that when I would take a malt-based seltzer and walk up to somebody and say, what do you think the alcohol is in this? They would say, vodka, right? And I'd say, no. You just walked out of a grocery store. Now, in Montana, you cannot buy vodka in a grocery store. So I'm going to ask you again, what do you think and people couldn't tell me. So the insight, which I think most insights are very, very simple at their nature. And the insight really was around, if people think it's a vodka soda, why not couldn't we give them a vodka soda? And then that being you're driving your point of differentiation. You're 100% right. I said my first thoughts were, well, but this can't work because fundamentally, right, the FET will require it to be priced too high on the shelf. But the truth is, because a federal excise tax on distilled spirits is taxed on ABV, when you get down to 4.5%, right, the differentiation, the gap isn't near as wide as and so the hypothesis was, if we could be $1 or $2 more on the shelf, was there a consumer that was willing to have a premium trade up? And in my career in distilled spirits, I mean, and I use this as a rule of thumb with my team on just about everything, is that 10% of every category should be premium. And I just thought, okay, well, if 10% of every category should be premium, and they're saying this White Claw and Truly and Bud Light Seltzer and all the other, they're saying there's going to be like a 300 million case category, I'll take 10% of that. I was laughing all day long. I said,
absolutely.
But we had an interesting, and I've told the story before, we had an interesting dilemma that this was October of 2018, and we thought really clearly that if we were not out by Memorial Day of 2019, we would have missed the route, the competitive opportunity to get to market first. So we literally shut down everything internal innovation, put all of our our resources and kind of, focus against this, to get out by Memorial Day. And you're 100% right that we had to take the competitive disadvantage and turn it into your advantage in those states where you could not sell, in the same stores right next to each other. So, we would take New York for an example, because a lot of this did come out of the Northeast initially. In New York, they couldn't sell malt-based products in a liquor store. So we would put signage up that said, seltzer available here, high noon, to say, and that was their only seltzer that these guys, they saw what was going on with White Claw and everything else. And so that, the retailers got very behind it in those states, because that was the only one of its kind that they could push. So, the old, selling it across from the guy at the checkout to the consumer was powerful, because he had one. So it was unique, and a lot of people don't remember, but initially it was called High Noon Vodka Soda, and we actually pivoted and changed it to High Noon Vodka Seltzer. Just because that's became the vernacular that the consumer was adopting. So it was a fast moving piece, and it is absolutely the the old adage that you have to turn your biggest constraint into your strength, in what we did. So
it's so true. I think that people that come from other consumer goods, like a lot of people from like Pepsi, or come into our world, a lot of it is based on regulation and where you fit within the regulatory environment in each state, and they don't get that. And they're like, oh, we're just going to have a national campaign. I'm like, yeah, that's illegal in 20 states what you're proposing. Yeah. Like, and
well, you're so right. And I'll tell you one and this is now going to see 7 years in hindsight, everybody is going to say duh, right? But when we went to Florida, we went and we said to Publix, look, the way, because in Florida, spirits can't be sold in grocery, right? Unless it's under 6% ABV. And so we went and said to Publix, we said, look, you're going to get, the margins, the markup on this is going to be incredible for you. And we had to get their lawyers, our lawyers, because nobody had read the regulations. People just thought, yeah, spirits is sold over here, and beer and wine sold over here. But it actually did say, and it was a big piece. Like of trying, Publix didn't even know our own laws. We had to call the state of Florida to determine, is this accurate? Can we really be sold in the grocery store if we're spirits and under 6% ABV? Rest is history. But it is state by state. That always has been. It's the nuance of our business, the 3-tier, the local legislation, et cetera.
Yeah. So keeping those.
By the way, I love it, because that's to me, that's the sport of it. That's what I love about it.
Right. It is great. Like it is. It makes our industry so special.
What if you could just go buy the shelf? I have friends that work in the non-alc space, and they're like, oh, we buy the shelf space. I thought,
that's not fun.
Yeah, you don't have to work.
It's lame, actually. It's lame.
I think there's a lot of people who would like to buy the shelf, but I'm curious, is all of that why you guys haven't really done any higher ABV RTDs? Do you just leave that on the full strength spirit side, but you don't want the price gaps to get that big and that sort of thing?
Well, now, Jen, I saw this in your questions, and I thought to myself, I was like, wait a second here. I would beg to differ, because
Fisher's Island.
We have Fisher's Island, Salt Point. We bought Salt Point on the West Coast, and
Salt Point's at what, like 6-7%, or?
Well, no. Salt Point's like a full strength cocktail. Like, it is full strength canned cocktails. Okay. Classic. It ranges by cocktail type, but it is a full strength cocktail, and we're really excited about Salt Point. It's very regional at this point, but. We are tracking unbelievably. We have 90% higher dollars per point of distribution than the category leader. And so in California. And so we are, it is predominantly, and we've kept it very focused, trying to build the brand out of the West Coast and the Pac Northwest. But we're very bullish on it. There's also some other things that in the higher ABV space, and this is where it also comes down, and as a longtime reader of your guys' publications, one of the things is that how IRI and Circana classifies things is not how the consumer classifies things. And so, when we say like, Gallo's not really in the higher full flavor ABV camp, you're probably not looking at our soju business. And flavored soju is sold in a glass bottle with a twist off cap for $4.99 for a for a 375, I think 355 or 375. And it's 15% ABV. And again, it was like one of those things I stumbled upon in Massachusetts. I was in a liquor store near a bunch of the kind of major academic areas, and where a lot of 21 plus people congregate and hang out. And shame on me, I saw a soju display, a flavored soju display that looked about like the size of a high noon display. And I said to the guy, "Oh, is that like, all the Asian students that buy?"
Sure.
And he was like, "No, you idiot. Actually, it is massively crossed over into the white general market." He said it's, sweet, higher ABV, and they drink them in singles. And so we serve it cold and we serve them in packs. And so the soju space is actually a big business that's growing for us very, very rapidly, and crossing all kinds of demographics. I mean, in California, I'm seeing it pop in Hispanic. I mean, I would like Korean soju, 15% ABV, popping in Hispanic. Go figure. I mean, so.
That's 2025.
Yeah.
Well, that's very interesting. So I wanted to ask about those tests, or maybe they're not test markets, but you just mentioned Massachusetts. You talked about Bozeman. Are there any other little areas around the country that are kind of like your secret weapon that, you look at for where the trends are going? I mean, all these trends come out of Philly. We've seen that too, but I don't know.
Yeah. Well, so yes and no. I mean, I would say I spend basically about a week to 2 weeks on the road every month, and I do it intentionally. And when I travel, I usually don't stay in a city for more than a day and a night. So yes, I do think you see that there's particular areas where trends come out of. I mean, the RTD trends, a lot of them early on came out of Idaho. I mean, things like Monaco,
Really?
And others, because there was different ABV regulation in Idaho. But I would say somewhat it depends on what I'm looking for. I mean, I spend a lot of time in university towns because I'm always kind of fascinated by what younger people are drinking and talking to younger bar owners. And I don't think it's any surprise. We should not be surprised that we're seeing the non-carbonated movement, because I was right after COVID. I remember where I was. I was in Minnesota, and then I was down at in College Station in Texas. And I'd just walk in and say, "What's the number one thing people are ordering?" And they'd say, "Tequila and water." And I said, "Why?" Like, you mean like tequila and soda? And they said, "No, they don't like the carbonation. They think it's bloating. They think it's right." So, here we are, and we see like tea and lemonade and all like the stuff that's non-carbonated exploding, and we shouldn't really be that surprised. I mean,
I spend 1 weekend a month in Austin. I have a son there, which is a college town, and I too noticed the non-carbonated thing. I was like, tequila and vodka and water too. Who's drinking vodka and water?
Yeah.
these idiots, these children, and it's ridiculous. But
well, I mean, carbonation exists for a reason. It provides mouthfeel, it provides flavor. I mean, it opens up flavors, but right, the consumer's always right. So it's my job to make sure that we're just like focused on what's next and what are the trends. We don't need to be what I like. That doesn't matter.
And that, you know, it's interesting you say that, because I think a lot of company lead with what they like, right? They acquire what they like and that sort of thing. Do you actively try to guard against that?
Yeah, on bias for sure. I mean, because what I try to think about a lot is, and I've got a great team, so let's be clear. This is not just on me. I mean, but what I try to think a lot about is different types of consumers in different types of occasions, and you know, I think Harry's point when he asked the question earlier, I think the reason I always thought that High Noon had a shot. Now, we could have gotten the branding wrong, we could have gotten the taste wrong, all of this. But the reason I did believe that it had a shot was that the ability to take something portable in an aluminum can that was spirits based was going to open up an enormous, much wider usage occasion. I mean, I lived for many years in Florida. Nobody takes anything but cans on boats. Nobody takes anything but cans around the pool, you know. And so it just, when I look at things, I look a lot at usage occasions, a lot at consumer groups in those usage occasions, and then also trying to think about like, well, how do I match up with that? What would be my I would say right to play and ability to win. You know, because I do think this comes back to route to market. There are things where I sometimes think we have a right to play, but our ability to win may be compromised. And that's one of the reasons that you see us working towards also some of the things that we've done of building a beer route to market, because ability to win in C-store is very hard for a traditional wine and spirits wholesalers. I mean, some of them do it well, but they're just not servicing the accounts in the same way.
Well, they're serving a $7.50 of wine to a guy who's buying a burrito at lunch.
That's right. Yeah, I always say the same thing. It's like people go into a C-store to buy one serving, and in wine we try to give them 5.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Doesn't match. Yeah.
I mean, C-store is so important, and you know, and it takes guts though for a company like Gallo, who has such a strong wine and spirits network, obviously, to have to go to your partners and say, "Hey, you're not going to get this one." Like, how hard was that?
Pretty hard. I mean, those were some, but you do it. I think in a zone of transparency, and you know, one of the things about, I think, family-owned companies like Gallo is we truly do value the relationship and the partnership of our wholesale tier, and I would say that is something that is probably still, we may be one of the last that values it in the same way, and so, you know, I think in many instances you set out what are the standards of execution that I expect that I need to reach the consumer, and have that frank dialogue and say, can you get me there or not? Right? Because at the end of the day, if you can't, I need to solve. That's my job to solve that. But I think you know, from the beer perspective, and you mentioned it kind of at the top of this conversation, some people who were old enough to remember Bartles and James said to Gallo, "Hey, we know you. Where you been?" You know, because we had at one point a beer route to market back when the legislation changed and Bartles and James had to go from being wine based to malt based, which, as you know, really, I mean, put a hurt on the business. But fundamentally, we had to stand up a malt network at that point. So it's you know, and then we can talk about the blurring of lines, and you know, I mean, as you guys have reported widely on, I mean, wine and spirits wholesalers buying beer wholesalers and beer wholesalers buying wine and spirits wholesalers. I mean, it's there's a lot of movement afoot, that's for sure. But those conversations are hard, but you do it with respect. I think you do it with transparency of expectations, and then have the conversation.
You mentioned Bartles and James, which California Wine Cooler and then Bartles and James were huge in the 80s and early 90s. But they had a shelf life. They had a which is, kind of been the bane of all flavored bottled or canned alcohol. Do you think that spirit RTDs, like malt seltzers before it, have a kind of a life cycle?
Sure, absolutely. I do. I mean, I think they have I think they have a life cycle what is always the question in those is they will hit a peak and then they will come down and they will settle. And it's just about when they settle, is that big business big enough and attractive enough? I mean, I don't think you go from, making this up, spirits RTDs from 100 million cases to zero, right? But you come back and you settle at some point after, euphoria and gold rush into the space. And so yes, I do. And I think that's true of all brands. And I think anybody who doesn't believe that about all brands runs the risk of obsolescence. And so, we are under no illusions, and I think that's why this is a different business, and it's a very fast-paced business that you have to move with the consumer quickly.
Right. And where it levels off, High Noon obviously is, as the number one RTD, is probably going to be fine, maybe even gain share within the category, because a lot of the long tail will go away.
The long tail will go away,
right,
for sure. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, and I think that's correct, and that's why that first mover advantage was so critical, right? I mean, we had almost a full year advantage over everybody else in seltzer. I mean, now obviously other people have been first to move in tea and first to move in other spaces. I mean, Cutwater, obviously, hats off to them for all the years that they worked against that brand when it was slow and and emerging.
Related to that, what have you discovered about how far you can stretch a brand in spirit RTDs? Because, in beer, when they start to kind of level off, it's line extend and line extend and line extend. But in spirit RTDs, it seems like the new brands, like even brands that came in with an established spirits name, that never really panned out. And it's always been new to world brands. So how far can you stretch a brand like High Noon or some of these other big spirit RTDs?
Well, Jordan, I think you're 100% right. People do not want, consumers, right? They don't want to say, I drink the same brand for my seltzer, for my distilled spirit, for my wine, just slap a label on it. It doesn't work that way. And I think people, if you believe, and I'm just saying if, but I grew up in this marketing school of thought in beverage alcohol, that brands need to have badge value. Brands need to say something about ourselves, right, to other people. And if you believe that, then I want different brands to say different things about me at different times and different occasions. So, if I'm with my boss, maybe I want one brand to say one thing. But if I'm at home with a couple of my buddies, I may want a different brand that says, hey, I'm relaxed and easygoing. So I think we're very careful with it. And while it is harder, I tend to believe that that there is more risk in stretching brand equity than there is upside. And so I try to work and say, well, not how can we make, High Noon relevant to Mexican Americans. I say, let's go make the best relevant brand that we can to Mexican Americans in VMC. And I'm, you know, a, I kind of like that, VMC flies beneath the radar in many ways. Because a lot of those of where it's sold isn't picked up and syndicated, but you know, I mean, I didn't know that if anybody could break through fully in with the Mexican American, it was not evident that an RTD was going to break through. Um, but again, I think we took the right proposition, certainly with the right spokesperson. Um, and and so I am one who is very, very cautious around brand equity. And I think the floor is littered with more case studies of people uh, that try to stretch brand equity too far.
And VMC is doing well, despite some people call the disappearance of the Hispanic consumer.
Sure. Yeah.
And then, of course, Canelo lost that terrible fight. But he's a statesman, right?
You know what I said to Harry? First of all, I was there, and I said he just went from a fighter to a statesman.
Yeah,
I mean, it was
right.
I said
He lost with class.
He was so gracious and classy in his loss, and I will tell you because I don't always join it, but you talk about a guy who is willing to work the industry. He was in 4 markets last week with beer wholesalers, um, in doing GSMs, doing in-store signings and appearances, which they have to get security when he goes. I mean, when he goes to, these places. I mean, it's total mayhem. But you think about some of the people that work inside a beer wholesaler and, to have Canelo come and do autographs and walk the floor. I mean, like many of like the people that work in those wholesalers are of Mexican descent or Mexican American. And, I mean, it is wild. I had never seen, we brought him to Gallo and then we were literally worried that lines were going to go down because people just left their shift to come and take the photo with him. But he is and I think that's what's so special about him. I mean,
well, another celebrity you've worked with is Dave Portnoy, and
yeah,
not only with High Noon, but with Lucky Dog, his rescue dog, Lucky One.
And that's not Dave. That's a whole different celebrity. That's Miss Peaches, Harry. That's
okay. Let's give credit where credit's due. Miss Peaches, yeah. Of course. And but this Portnoy, I've been following him since the very early days at Barstool.
Yeah.
And he just seems like a real dude. Like there's no bullshit. Like the way he dealt with the call her daddy girl, Alex Cooper.
Yep.
He just let her go. He said, "You know what? Go get your bag." He didn't have to do that, by the way. And it just, I mean, maybe I'm glazing Dave Portnoy more than he should be. But how is he to deal with?
Easiest person I work with.
Really?
By
that
far.
doesn't surprise me.
By far. I just text him. Hey, Dave, here's what we're thinking. What do you think? And he's like, great. Do you have this date available? We've got something we think we might really need you for. Yep, no problem. I mean, he is the easiest person I work with in that capacity. And he's been a tremendous partner across the board. And he really discovered High Noon. We had gone and we're looking at Barstool Sports because we really thought it matched the right demographic. But it was really Dave that found it in the Barstool office and said, "I love this. I love the packaging. I love the whole approach to the brand." And he tried it. He fell in love with it, and then that's how it kind of all unfolded. Now, Miss Peaches, she's a little more challenging to work with because her schedule's a little different. And
well, I want to go back to VMC briefly because that's a much bigger brand to your point, than I think people realize. I think it's a top 10 spirits RTD in scans already. How far is that distributed? I mean, California's its stronghold. Can it be bigger than High Noon? I mean, what's the path forward there?
Yeah, the path forward was follow your consumer. So that's the basis of it. And so, in 10 states, you can reach 80% of the Mexican American population in the country. So the path forward there was really pretty straightforward and direct. We are seeing in certain states, back to the comment of just market structures. Texas is really starting to kick in, but Texas always kicks in later because of the nature of where distilled spirits have to be sold. So, but we're seeing the velocities continue, and Harry, you talked about the disappearing consumer. We are not seeing that in our sales, which is interesting because it begs the question. Then it's like, oh, is there a nuance there within the consumer? And that's something that we're working on trying to understand ourselves, because we know that foot traffic in, like, let's say Northgate or Vallarta in California, we know the foot traffic is down. They tell us that, right? And yet VMC is still so explosive in those channels.
Is it assimilated Hispanics versus non?
That is one hypothesis.
Okay.
That's one hypothesis. I think some of the other hypothesis is, it's just that, well, this is potentially just coming in and part of the repertoire in beverage alcohol. So it's, I need for this party what used to maybe be a total beer occasion. I need beer plus VMC, right? So we're working through some of that, and it's again, because it's not tracked and syndicated, it's not quite as immediately obvious. And then you have to dig down into the other states where really data becomes a little murky.
Yeah. I want to ask as well, because you and I chatted, I don't know, 6 weeks ago, and you hinted that you always start with a strong consumer hypothesis, as we've established, when you're bringing new products to market. What hypotheses are you all working on right now in general for 26? Is there anything new that you can tease?
Sure. Well, gosh, man, Jen, you put me on the spot. No, I think a couple things we can tease out. Number one, when you are not a beer company, I don't think you always fully understand the role that different sizes play in different channels. And I think that is something, as we have hired more beer professionals into it. I know you guys know my colleague Liz Tomic, who was at ZX Ventures past, but the beer team that I have around me is really one who's really helped me understand the value of these different sizes. So High Noon and Lucky One, new sizes that fit the right channel for the right occasion. That's fairly straightforward. On High Noon, yes, we have a new flavor expression that you will see coming out in May. That's pretty exciting. And on the Lucky One side of things, yeah, we'll be ready to go in March with some new introductions as well.
Ooh, how do you follow? Like we had spoken about, Lucky One did over 1 million cases in 7 months.
Faster than High Noon, faster than 1 million cases. Now you can say, yeah, but the category's now paved the way. Yes, I would agree with you, but still, from a just speed standpoint, it's seems to have a lot of traction. And what I find, and this you can get in the syndicated data, is that 64% of Lucky One consumers are new to hard lemonade. And that to me is like, whoa, okay. We're not just taking share or something, like we're helping make the pie bigger, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. So no sophomore year slump concerns with it having shot out of the cannon so crazily.
I get paid to worry.
You're like, yes, concerns.
So I do worry, but no, because I think the big thing is we were late to market. last year, and so I missed a lot of the chain resets. So we're actually going to pick up a pretty significant amount of chain resets this year, which I think will then just help accelerate the trial. And it really is about the trial. I mean, if you know Gallo, you do know one thing about it is at whatever price point you want to choose, Gallo prides itself on quality of liquid. I mean, that is what they want to do, is they want to deliver the best quality liquid that they possibly can for the price. And I think if we can continue to gain trial on Lucky One, I think we'll have a good shot in lemonade. It's number 2 lemonade, hard lemonade in spirit space right now. So I have to be happy with it. Even, tough total beverage alcohol industry, but I think as far as how we feel our portfolio is going, we're pretty happy with the bets that we've made.
I want to talk about Montucky cold snacks. So about 10 years ago, I was in Big Fork, Montana, where my ex-wife and an ex-girlfriend own houses, which is cool because, they get to talk to each other at the Garden Bar downtown all the time. But I was at the Garden Bar and somebody handed me a Montucky cold snacks, and I was like, what is this? What is cold snacks? And what is Montucky? And it was explained to me that that's what Montanans call redneck Montanans Montucky or something like that. And I was like, I go, what is it big? And they were like, oh no, it's huge. Everybody drinks it here. And then I was like, oh my God, Gallo bought it. So my question, I guess, is how is that going? And it's kind of been your lead into more beer centric route to market. And
100%.
And then second part of the question is, do you plan to follow that with more malt based beverages and get more into that segment?
Well, yes, because I can answer, that easily. Today we're the number 4 total alc bev supplier. But if you're gonna get bigger, you can't ignore the malt segment. It's just impossible to ignore. But we're also, again, I've said it earlier, as a privately held company, I don't need to go out and, justify it with quarterly returns and shareholder returns. This can be what we hand off to the next generation of Gallows is, yes, we built you a beer business too. But look, living in Montana, Montucky was one of those things that I saw. And I was like, the fishing guides were all drinking it, and you go around Bozeman and you'd see it all over the place. And the 2 guys that founded it, are just so creative, Chad and Jeremy. They're wild, but they had a vision for what they wanted this to be, and they wanted snackable beer that you didn't think that much about it. It was just something that, like, hey, just no different than grabbing a bag of chips, right? You could just grab a beer and enjoy. And Jordan talked about it earlier. There are so many brands in beer that have extended and extended and extended, and I don't run those companies. I don't pretend to know that much about the beer industry. But what I kind of hypothesized, and Liz and I did the work on this together, was every generation wants its own brands on some level, right? If you look at vodka, right? Tito's replaced Grey Goose, which replaced Absolute, which replaced Sky, which replaced Smirnoff, and so the hypothesis kind of there was, man, look how this is resonating, like the artwork on the can, the lifestyle they're creating around it, the ski culture. Because there's a big piece of it that they kind of just did what they liked. They were like, yeah, we ski, so let's have these awesome ski suits that say Montucky on them. But but the data plays out, right? I mean, legal drinking age to 33-year-olds, right? Montucky recruits 70% better than all beer brands. And that is just a hard up fact. And to me, that's the piece that's encouraging for a company like Gallo, because I say, all right, then if we can package the right marketing with distribution muscle and execution, which we don't have muscle in the malt network, but we do have the Gallo culture of execution. Um, we've got a shot here of taking and helping you guys take this from, fairly Mountain West region brand to where it can be. We're seeing real growth in Tennessee, seeing real growth in Texas. Um, and I think what's interesting about it, and I know you guys have talked to my friends because I really like them a lot over at Garage Beer and such, this domestic premium set and the emergence of can, and that's where we had to reprice position it. But I mean, like, can Garage Beer, Montucky, Yingling, right? This other kind of, is that a set?
Friday beers.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a whole new segment. It's a new
personality loggers, right?
Yeah,
It's lifestyle loggers.
What
I
a
mean,
great
Yeah.
way to put it, Jen. Personality loggers, like, because it's this Bud Miller Coors forever, for the last 30 years.
Yeah.
They've dominated that kind of that segment, and then now we're getting it. It's similar beer in the can, but it's personality driven, and it's a whole new sub segment that I think the three big brewers are terrified of.
Well,
I mean, not
I'm just
terrified. Maybe not
I'm just
terrified yet.
a little fly. I'm just a little fly
Yeah.
on there, but
On their butts, yeah.
terrified. I don't know, but I do think that, again, we're trying to win with a very select audience, and that is, I think that's the key to good brand building, is not trying to be all things to all people, and it's very easy to lose your way when you do that. And that's no comment on beer. That's a comment on any brand. But I don't know. I'm pretty enthusiastic. I mean, I'll tell you, in the things where my friends personally get excited about, right? Uh, they get excited about Montucky. When I tell people, like, oh my God, can you believe this? We scored Montucky, like we're working with the founders. They're like, no way, Montucky. Oh my God, I love that, And I have friends of mine around the country will be like, I found a Montucky, and
It's such a
thank you.
great. It's the branding really is.
Yeah.
Like I said, when I first saw it in Montana, I was like, oh, this screams at me. Like,
Yeah.
this is, given Gallo's 90 plus year history. They make all their own wine. Is there a brewery in your future? Is there a production facility for malt or RTDs in your future?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, RTDs we do, spirits based.
You make it
RTDs.
yourself, yeah.
Yeah, we do. We have Co-Man as well, but we have two locations that we make RTDs. But we also saw a brand called Tin Ball that's malt based, very very regional, but again, I look a lot at reorder rates and dollars per point, and like this was popping off the charts in the South and Southeast. And so, the decision on when to bring brewing capacity internal is one that's highly around, do you have the scale? Because especially as making lager, if you have to have the scale in order to be able to make lager in-house. So I think it is something with patience that we will grow into. And there'll be a very clear moment where we believe that's the right move to transition from co-man into in-house production. And as Gallo, it fits our model better. I mean, everybody knows we're a pretty vertically integrated company. We like quality control. We like, I mean, that's a hallmark of who we are. And um, so I could see it in the future, but it may not be in the near future.
Well, and to be honest, there's just a lot of excess capacity in the country right now. So
Sure.
I mean, you can contract pretty cheap relatively. We had the same situation in the 90s, and that's why we had all these cheap beers coming out, because there was so much excess capacity. You got St. Ides and other like malt liquors, Crazy Horse, and these crazy things happening. And when you look at Outlaw out of Colorado,
Sure.
I think they're maybe taking advantage of below unit cost capacity. I mean, so anyway, that's my rant on that. Jen, I'll let you take it home.
Well, that's a probably a pretty good hypothesis. But I agree with you. There is a lot of capacity out there, and it's interesting because I think you always see throughout tough times in our industry, great brands have actually emerged out of it. I mean, Tito's emerged out of the '08 recession, right? I mean, and we can point to things even in our own wine portfolio and others and say, yeah, that was, so look, we believe, and this is, nice to not have to give quarterly updates to bankers on Wall Street, even though some of them I'm friends with. But the truth is, like, if you've got an investment strategy that can work through downturns, we're still long-term, we believe in beverage alcohol.
Yeah, my last question for you, if you are a frequent listener, then maybe you saw our chat with Evan Burns of The Long Drink, and he said in the last few months, he predicts that in the next 5 years, an RTD spirits brand will do 100 million cases, right? The most obvious one would be High Noon, right? What's your projection there? Are you guys going to be the first to get to 100 million cases in the space?
Well, I have mapped these kind of things, as one can imagine. And there would need to be serious state legislative changes to get there, because the math just isn't. I can't remember, was Evan talking about a brand or a total category?
I think he was talking about a brand. Jordan, correct me if I'm wrong.
He was talking about a brand, but I think he was just throwing out
a number,
a large ballpark.
Look, by the way, what those guys have done, very, very clever, very interesting. But I think the piece that I would say on that is that that is largely out of the control of the brand, and I think much higher in control of the accessibility to market, because fundamentally, let's just take Texas, right? I mean, if Texas, and I know it's, goes on the legislative agenda, off the legislative agenda, but I don't want to get into like the politics and who's behind what, but let's just say
HEB. They want it.
That was Harry Schumacher who said that.
No, I mean,
Britt washes his hands.
I kind of have to say that they've been strong on it, and then they don't care for a few years, and then they get back on it, and then they don't care for a few. So it's, they have a deal with twin liquors.
We'd be talking about, even if they followed, Florida and put an ABV limit on it, we're talking about 10,000 new doors. I mean, it's
Britt. The package stores here are a strong lobby.
I know this. Believe me, I'm in the spirits business. I go to TPSA. Remember that, my friends listening?
Yeah,
I am there regularly.
And they love. By the way, nobody loves you more than Texas package stores, because that's the only hedge they have against HEB and Walmart. They have High Noon, and those other stores don't, and it's they appreciate you. Trust me.
No, and I appreciate them, because it really was. It was a similar situation. They were willing to get behind it, and do things and say when nobody else wanted to put, a spirit seltzer in a what was previously called the beer cold box, right? I mean, they were willing to say, yeah, maybe we will, because actually it's our cold box, not the beer cold box. It's our cold box, and we're going to decide what goes in there.
Right. Right.
And so
There's nobody more stubborn than a Texas package store owner.
well,
They know their shit.
It's like, well, I know many stubborn
but
people.
I would say this is not even one of those ones. I mean, they are smart like foxes.
That's right. Different breed.
Yep.
Anyway, enough about that. But there's one more thing.
I think, Jen, to your point, though, can it be significantly bigger? Yes.
Okay.
How big? I don't know, because I think a lot of that really, comes down and also, let's face it. I mean, we have high tax states and low tax states, and that, especially in a pinched economy like how we are today. I mean, I think that dollar or two difference, where it may not have felt in COVID to be such a huge gap, I think today it is a huge gap.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've got to, so that all those pieces play into it.
Yeah.
Just picking up on that real quick, on the evolution of High Noon's marketing. For a while there was an emphasis on trading up from malt seltzer to spirits-based seltzer. But as the spirit RTD landscape grows, do you feel like there might be a shift in the marketing and kind of standing out as a superior spirit RTD in that realm?
Well, I think the first piece that we had to tackle was that piece around, like, consumers just didn't know that there was a difference in. I mean, 5 years ago, it's not that long, but I mean, I don't think consumers knew that there was a difference in base alcohol type. One of the interesting things, and we were talking about the long tail going away. I think High Noon tequila seltzer still has a long run ahead of it, because there is a tequila first consumer that wants, whether bad name, maybe. I mean, ranch waters exist in Texas. They don't really exist. People just order tequila soda, but I think there's still a long runway, as we've seen a lot of the competition in tequila fall out. The number of people and the awareness is still very low on High Noon tequila seltzer. So, to answer your question, I think the first thing we had to do was drive the differentiation. Now that the differentiation is established, I think we do have to establish, right? So why High Noon? What's different? What makes it better? And that's and that's a big is a focus of it. And also, again, Jordan, to the point I made earlier, meeting the consumer where they are. If I'm in, C stores and don't have the right size, that's a competitive disadvantage. And so TTB's movement to allow this change where we don't have to have that silly resealable cap anymore on the tall boys. I mean, that's a big deal, because stadiums wouldn't carry High Noon because they said, listen, you reseal that cap and you put liquid in there, that's a missile in a stadium. So they always, just like, you go buy a beer or anything else at a stadium, they crack that top. They're going to make sure that nothing gets hurled across at competitive fans.
Dude, I never even thought of that, but that totally makes sense. I mean, nobody was happier than Clem Pappas. He learned about that rule while we were on this podcast at Surfside, and he was just like, holy shit, thank God I can, finally get a tall boy.
Huge cost savings, huge, like, I mean, when you have to put a diagram on the back of a can as to how to open it,
it's a buzzkill.
Like Clem was like, we had to buy the cans in Dubai and get the cap in Mexico and then put it. It was just like a nightmare. So, Jen, is there anything else? We've kept this
Well,
very long.
Britt, I wish we had you for 30 more minutes. Let me just ask you one more question. The Spirit of Gallo portfolio is really awesome. I mean, there's some very differentiated and singular brands in there. Lo-fi aperitifs, right? That's an interesting kind of you don't see a lot of that marketed as a vermouth that you drink in America just by itself, right? For example, you have a lot of other special brands. What can we expect to pop next? Like, what are you excited about from the portfolio? I mean, you're excited about all of them, right? But curious.
My gosh, I'm probably going to get a call after this from Wine Spirits Daily saying, "How did you release that on beer on a beer podcast?"
That's the way the industry's going.
Look, our Grand Malo business, which was a brand that we saw, it's the same partners that we did VMC with. They owned a brand called Grand Malo in Mexico that is a tamarind tequila shot brand, and it was on fire in Mexico. We brought it into the US because I was down, in Southern California and in El Paso and the Rio Grande Valley, and I was like, people are bringing this across the border and selling this in liquor stores. I think we should maybe see if we can figure out a deal here. And it's off to an unbelievable start. So I'm really excited about Grand Malo. New Amsterdam continues to do very well in a tough vodka climate. Pink Whitney does well, which if you had told me I was ever going to sell we talking cases and spirits. If you told me I was going to sell 1 million cases of a pink lemonade flavored shot brand, I would have said, I will not bet my career on that. Here we are. And I mean, from a hockey podcast to 1 million cases, and growing, it baffles me sometimes. But, and then kind of on the higher end of our portfolio, if you haven't checked out Horse Soldier Bourbon, awesome story about the guys that were they made a movie 12 Strong about them, but the guys who were dropped in to Afghanistan and were the first into Afghanistan fighting against the Taliban in our response to 9/11. They make a very high quality bourbon called Horse Soldier, and those guys, they're an awesome team. And we've got our distillery opening in Somerset County, and imagine this, July of 2025. There's a certain anniversary that's going on there.
Can't imagine. 250th America's anniversary.
Amazing. But they have really cool what those guys do.
Cool. Again, brands with a lot of personality, point of view, lifestyle driven, right? All of them. That makes sense.
And quality.
Yeah.
And quality. Well, I think the Ernest and Julio Gallo company is known for quality and quality of people, and I think Britt, I think you're getting into legendary status in this industry.
I don't know about that.
No, I think so. I think so. And well, we appreciate you being on BeerNet Radio, podcast where all your dreams come true. Folks, don't forget that the Beer Summit, well, it's the Beer, Wine, and Spirits Summit, because we are a converging industry, will be held at the Hotel del Coronado in San Diego. Go to beernet.com to get your tickets. We extended the room rate, the special Happy Harry's discounted room rate until December 21st. I don't know how Jessica did that, but she did it. So there's still cheap rooms, and it's the last chance you're going to get to stay at the Del, because we're not having it there again after this. We're going to the Breakers full time for at least the next 5 years, because we've signed contracts. So it's been newly renovated. It's beautiful, I've been told. I just talked to Kimberly Clements, who was there last weekend. She says it's freshly painted. It doesn't smell like a dirty, grandpa's dirty socks like it used to. It's all fresh and new. So get your tickets today, because there is a limit. I know people think that's bullshit, but there actually is a limit. The room holds 250 people, and at 250, we're cutting it off. And I think we're at like 211 right now. So Get your tickets, beernet.com, and hope to see you in January. And thank you, Britt, for being on. And Caroline, thank you for listening and for setting this up. And we'll see you down the road, Britt.
Yeah, you will, for sure.
All right, guys. Take care.
Right.